Hey hockey card fans, welcome back to the channel. Went back to Heroes Cards and Comics again. It's my go-to place. And picked up 14 cards from the 1974 O-PEE-CHEE set. This is the Philadelphia Flyers' first Stanley Cup victory. And I'm getting closer and closer to finishing this set. I think I need 38 more cards. But I went and picked 14 more. Paid like $20 plus taxes for these. No super big names as far as players go. But anyway, let's go right into it. First up, we have LA Kings right winger Don Koharski. This is a rookie card. The cut's pretty bad in this one. Looks like someone had an uncut sheet. Koharski played 6 seasons with the LA Kings. He was a round 2 20th overall in the 72 draft. Then he played one final season 78-79 with Vancouver. I don't even remember that. There was no card for that year. I do have a couple of his other cards. 437 games, 96 goals, 182 points. 29 playoff games, 7 goals, 2 assists. So not exactly a household name. He was part of their leaderboard though for something for that year. So he had 21 goals. So maybe his shooting percentage. I don't have that card. But I know in 70, 79, 80 he was given a card, but it wasn't with Vancouver, it was with LA, so I'm not sure how that works. So on January 1st, 1979, he was traded from LA Kings to Vancouver Canucks for Randy Holt, and he was claimed in an expansion draft by Hartford Whalers from Vancouver Canucks in 79, but never played with the Hartford Whalers. I do have other cards of his from the LA Kings, though. Next up, we have Minnesota North Stars team leaders. Bill Goldsworthy had 48 goals. Dennis Hextall had 62 assists. Dennis Hextall had 82 points. And Danny Grant had 15.6 scoring percentage. That's why I think Kozak's on the scoring list for LA. Bill Goldsworthy was the first All-Star for the Minnesota North Stars. Made the All-Star team a bunch of times. 69-70. 70-71, 71-72, and then 73-74. Here's their leading goal scorer. Now we go to the Chicago Blackhawks. Right winger Jim Pappen. He had won 2 Stanley Cups with the Toronto Maple Leafs and won 3 American Hockey League Cups with the Rochester Americans. Went to Chicago in the 68. Stayed with them until 75. Then went to the Cleveland Seals in 75-76, and then Cleveland Barons in 76-77. So he went with the California moved. Fairly good player. 7 straight 20-goal seasons, or 20-plus, with 41 coming in 72-73. Played 767 games, had 278 goals, 573 points. In 92 playoff games, he had 33 goals, 34 assists for 67 points. So played well in the playoffs, went to 2 Stanley Cup finals. They lost both to Montreal. And he was traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs to Chicago Blackhawks for Pierre Pilot in May 1968. I think Chicago got the best of that deal. Doesn't say why he went to California. Probably he only played 32 games for California, so he might have been hurt and then released. Sometimes they don't tell you these things. Next up, center for the Kansas City Scouts, Richard Lemieux. He's in his Vancouver Canucks jersey. This card is in really good shape. He got claimed in the expansion draft. I think they were hoping big things from him, because his 3 years in Vancouver, he had scored 17 goals, 35 assists for 52 points. But then he kind of slid backwards with 5 goals, 17 assists for 22 points after playing a full season. So they were hoping he could get his scoring touch back. He had been picked in the 3rd round, 39th overall in the 71 draft, which is the Guy Lafleur draft. Played only one full season in KC, had 10 goals, 20 assists for 30 points. Then 76 he went to Atlanta, but spent most of his time with the Nova Scotia Voyagers, and finally went to the WHA, played for the Calgary Cowboys. So he never panned out once he left Vancouver. And he was traded from KC with round 2 pick in the 77 draft to Atlanta for Fred Buster Harvey. Harvey was Traded quite a bit, or so it seems. I've seen his name pop up so many times. Minnesota North Stars left winger Dennis Hextall. That's a nice card, actually. Like, the action pose is pretty damn cool. There's comics on the back of these too, which is nice to see. Dennis Hextall started his career with the Rangers, then went to the Kings, California Golden Seals, Minnesota North Stars, where he had his best years, then the Detroit Red Wings, and finally the Washington Capitals. I have his last card with the Capitals in the 79 set. But he didn't play very many games with the Caps. 681 games, 153 goals, 503 points. Only 22 playoff games, 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points. So he didn't play with a lot of good teams, unfortunately. But he wasn't a bad player himself. I have his rookie card, I think, with California. So he's traded from Minnesota North Stars to Detroit Red Wings for Bill Hogaboom and a conditional draft pick. That's interesting. That's in 1976. Released by Detroit, signed by Washington. Doesn't say why LA or California got rid of him. Might have to go to hockeytrades.com, historical hockey trades, to find out. I'm just looking at HockeyDB real quick. Interesting they say Bill Hogaboom, because the next card I have, 116, is right winger for the Detroit Red Wings, Bill Hogaboom, rookie card. So he got traded for Dennis Hextall. That is funny. Hogaboom played 2 games in Atlanta, then was traded to Detroit where he played 4 games in 73. Played 2.5 seasons with Detroit before going to Minnesota, then played with the Minnesota before finally going back to Detroit. I have a couple of his cards. Best seasons were when he was with Detroit. 3rd, 4th line guy who had a hard time sticking with the main club. Traded from Atlanta Flames to Detroit Red Wings for Leon Rochefer. Traded from Detroit with conditional draft pick to Minnesota North Stars for Dennis Hextall. Released by Minnesota, signed by Detroit. So, him and Dennis Hextall are obviously linked that way. Next up we have the Washington Capitals coach, Jim Anderson. I hate that shirt, polka dot shirt. Never heard of this guy. Coached the Washington Capitals. His NHL career consisted of 7 games with the LA Kings, where he scored a goal and had 2 assists. That's his entire career with the NHL, but he won 3 championships with the American Hockey League Springfield Indians. In fact, he spent most of his professional career with the Springfield Indians. He was a mid-season replacement in Washington. Coached 54 games, 4 wins, 45 losses, 5 ties, .12 percentage. Then coached the Springfield Indians and didn't do much better. 33, 39, and 4. Well, he did a lot better. But coaching an expansion team and you're not well known as a coach, terrible coaching idea. Just never got another shot. Thanks in the NHL, but thanks to that. Now we have center for the New York Rangers, Walt Tkachuk. He's probably one of the better known players on this list that I have. Spent his entire career with the New York Rangers. 945 games, 227 goals, 78 assists. 93 playoff games with 19 goals and 51 points. He had been to 2 finals with the New York Rangers. They lost both. One to Boston, the other to the Montreal Canadiens. Had 6 20-plus goal seasons, so he was a second-line guy looking at his point totals. He wasn't part of the gag line, the goal-a-game line. I have right winger, Detroit Red Wings, Mickey Redmond. This card is warped a little. It's been part of a poster that somebody cut, it looks like. Rolled it up. You used to get all these uncut sheets all the time. He had won 2 Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens. Played 3.5 seasons with them before getting traded to Detroit. And he scored 51 goals that year with Detroit in 73-74. He had back-to-back 50-goal seasons. He had 52 in 72-73 and 51 in 73-74. But then injuries, just never could recover. Only played 29 games the following season, 74-75, and then 37 the next before calling it quits. So in 538 games, he had 233 goals, 428 points. 16 playoff games, 2 goals, 3 assists. Well, obviously with Montreal. Montreal traded Mickey with Guy Chiron and Bill Collins to Detroit Red Wings from Frank Mahovlich. I would say Montreal did well because Frank Mahovlich was a really good player. Mickey Redmond could have been good and did have his moments with Detroit, but he's not a Mahovlich. Then we have one of the bigger guys in hockey back then, 6'2", 200 pounds. Not many of those guys back in the day. Defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres, Jim Schoenfeld. He also has recorded a rock album. I'll have to find that out. See what it sounds like. Did not know that Schoenfeld recorded a rock album. I know him more, and you hockey fans should know him more, as the guy who blasted Jim Koharski, was it? Called him a big fat pig, told him to go eat some donuts. I'll have to find that when he was coaching the New Jersey Devils. He'd been drafted in the first round, 5th overall by the Buffalo Sabres in the 72 draft. Was with the Buffalo Sabres from 72-73 all the way up to 81-82 before getting traded to Detroit. And then he went to Boston and then went back to Buffalo. Big guy, excellent, pretty good defenseman. Played 719 games, had 51 goals, 204 assists for 255 points. But over 1,000 penalty minutes, over 1,100 penalty minutes. 75 playoff games, 16 points. He was part of Buffalo's drive when they went to a Stanley Cup final in 74-75. As a coach, he coached the Buffalo Sabres, New Jersey Devils, Washington Caps, Phoenix Coyotes. He took the New Jersey Devils in 87-88 to the semifinals where they lost. I think that's when he called Koharski a fat pig. I think it was Koharski. I'll have to go back and find out. I'll put the clip in. Because that is so hilarious when he fights with him, and then Koharski trips on his own feet, then says that Shoenfield pushed him. It's quite interesting. What doomed Shoenfield as a coach was he couldn't take teams over the hump. Other than that one semifinal appearance, he couldn't get out of the first or second round. Now we have another defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks, Jocelyn Gouvernant. He actually played in the 72 Summit Series. That's how respected he was. He was drafted in the first round, 3rd overall in the 71 draft by the Vancouver Canucks. So Lafleur and Dion went 1 and 2. He was a really good defenseman. Unfortunately, so he played for the Canucks from 71 to 74. Then he got traded to Buffalo. And then spent his last years with the New York Rangers. Injuries did him in the end. Only played 571 games with 307 points, but he played 40 playoff games with 21 points. Went with Buffalo and Schoenfeld to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. So in 74, he was traded from Vancouver with Brian McSheffrey, never heard of him, to Buffalo for Jerry Meehan and Mike Robitaille. I'd say Buffalo got the better deal. Then traded from Buffalo Sabres to New York Rangers for future considerations on March 12, 1979. So it was for New York's playoff run, but never played in the playoffs. He was hurt. Wasn't the same guy. Now, if you're an Islander fan, you'll know this guy. Right winger, New York Islanders, Bob Nystrom. He was a big part of their 4 Stanley Cups. He was a third round, 33 overall draft pick in 72 by the Islanders. Played his entire career with the Islanders, 900 games, won 4 Stanley Cups. He was the guy who was always with Bobby Bourne and Butch Goring. That was their second line. 235 goals, 513 points, over 1,200 minutes in penalties. 157 playoff games, 39 goals, 44 assists for 83 points. In the playoffs, he actually really did well. In their Stanley Cup wins, he was a big part of that. In 4 Stanley Cup seasons, he had 27 goals, 26 assists. Not bad. Big part of that. Then the last 2 years of his career was injury plagued. Washington Capitals right winger Lou Morrison. He was obviously with the Atlanta Flames and then got picked in the expansion draft. He'd actually been a round 1, 8th overall in the 1968 draft by the Philadelphia Flyers. Spent 3 seasons with them. Didn't do much. Then went to the Flames, the Capitals, and the Penguins. Not really. He was a 4th line guy who never really got a lot of points. 564 games, 39 goals, 52 assists for 91 points. 107 penalty minutes, so I don't think he saw the ice all that much. 17 playoff games, no points. I have his Pittsburgh card, and I think I have his Atlanta card. So he's claimed the expansion draft by Atlanta Flames from Philadelphia Flyers. Claimed the expansion draft by Washington Caps from Atlanta Flames. Traded from Washington Capitals to Pittsburgh Penguins for Ron Lalonde. I don't know why he ever got picked first overall. I don't know why Philadelphia would pick him in the first round. The draft wasn't all that great in the late 60s. Not a lot of teams understood it at the time. Montreal was one of the first teams to really understand the draft. I'd say the Islanders were second. Last card we have. This guy is also well known. California Golden Seals defenseman Terry Murray. Love those jerseys. He was drafted in the 7th round, 88th overall in the 1970 amateur draft by California. Played 90 games with the Seals over 3 seasons. Then went to the Philadelphia Flyers for 39 games. Then the Detroit Red Wings for 23 games. Went back to the Flyers for 76 games. And then the Washington Caps for 74 games. So he bounced around the league, played 303 games, scored 4 goals, 76 assists, 80 points. 18 playoff games, had 2 goals, 2 assists. All with Philadelphia, that. So Terry Ryan was loaned by the California Golden Seals to the Boston Braves. So minor league thing. Traded from Philadelphia Flyers with Bob Ritchie, Steve Coates, and Dave Kelly to Detroit Red Wings for Mike Corney and Rick LaPointe. I would say Philly won that because Rick LaPointe claimed off waivers by Washington Caps from Philadelphia Flyers. So not exactly a household name that way, but he was a coach. Assistant for the Washington Caps, was their head coach from 1990 to 94. Then he Philadelphia Flyers coach for 3 years. Then the Florida Panthers coach for 3 years. An assistant coach for a lot of years. LA Kings head coach. He took the Philadelphia Flyers to a Stanley Cup when they had Lindros in 96, 97, but they lost to Detroit. And then so then they fired him. Took the Washington Capitals to a semifinal. Took Philly to a semifinal plus a final. Then lost in round 1 to a lot of teams. Doesn't say his win-loss record as far as coaching goes. I could probably find that out though. But he did coach a lot of good players. But anyway, there we have it. 14 cards from the 1974-75 O-PEE-CHEE set. Couple of, I would say there's about 4 big names in there. Mickey Redmond is a pretty big name, as is Will Tkachuk, Jocelyn Gourmand, Shoenfield, Nystrom, and Terry Murray, as well as Jim Pappen, are all pretty well-known names in the hockey world. The other guys, not so much. All you hockey fans out there, let me know who's your favorite coach, Schoenfeld or Terry Murray. Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been Hockey Night in Belmont.
There'll be barbecue in heaven when I get there. I'm getting hungry, just waiting to go. There'll be barbecue in heaven when I get there. I hope I get to go. Life's long, works hard, kids raising feed, and every day I gladly pray for Judgment Day. There'll be a cloud in the sky, angels say, howdy son, come on in, stick it on your tray. There'll be barbecue in heaven when I get there. I'm getting hungry, just waiting to go. There'll be barbecue in heaven when I get there. I hope I get to go. Singing on the roof, but we